His name is Mike Jones. He is a very popular guest on this mother of all talk shows, and I'm glad to say he joins me now. Mike, thanks very much for coming on the mother of all talk shows, and my condolences to you and all those who live in St Petersburg for the heinous act of terrorism that took place there. Tell us what kind of impact, first of all, it has made on the great city of St Petersburg itself.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway, for having me on your channel again. Yes, it was a devastating blow. My partner, my ex-wife, she was very concerned about that. This is a cafe that I myself had visited in previous occasions. I'd given speeches there myself. I have sat in that chair where Max Fomsin, to give him his real name, had sat himself when he lost his life. I had given talks there with colleagues of mine.
Wow. This
was undoubtedly well, in my opinion, it was a targeted attack through I agree with the Russian authorities that it was a Navalny-linked, CIA-funded, possibly Ukraine Special Services attack there to cause fear among people like myself. Russian authorities called it an attack on Z bloggers. So people like myself who understand the Russian cause, who understand the values that Russia is fighting to protect, and well, people like myself and John Mark Dugan, who has lost a very close friend of his in Daria Dugina, we won't be perturbed by things like this, but we will learn the lessons, and we understand the modus operandi of the CIA and the Western powers as they seek to silence our voices.
Now, in your own discourse there, you departed from what was the initial suspicion and accusation by the Russian authorities, who quickly attributed it to the special forces of Ukraine. But am I right in saying that they now seem to concede that it was internal Russian criminals, albeit encouraged, perhaps facilitated, because it was quite a sophisticated operation? It wasn't a common or garden bomb. It wasn't an IED. It was a bomb, presumably with a timer, inside a rather fine piece of sculpture. So not something that any Tom, Dick or Harry could pull off. So possibly assisted by, logistically assisted by outsiders, but nonetheless, a crime carried out by Russians, on Russians.
Yeah, the latest reports is there are claims about a National Republic Army that are taking credit for this. But I think people with two brain cells to rub together can understand that there was outside support and funding. The suspect, Daria Trepova, she had plane tickets booked out of the country. She cut her hair. She gave a fake name of Nastia. She is now claiming that she's set up. Well, the case is ongoing, and I will not make judgments or, that sort of thing on her particular involvement in the case. But one must understand that such a thing, as you have just said, she, in her social media, apparently was an artist, a sculptor. Her husband was arrested in anti-war protests, closely linked to the Anti-Corruption Fund, which, of course, is Navalny funded and understood, hence why, from his foreign funding, has been part of the reason why he's been involved in this legal court case. I will not comment further because it's outside of my knowledge and research. But as I understand, there are foreign powers influenced in Navalny and therefore in her husband and therefore with her. They are clearly against the special military operation and also the conveyance of the information of that special military operation. So they were pieces in the puzzle that were utilized, in my opinion, my personal opinion. I believe that these factors were utilized to the benefit of the West in furthering their aims against the Russian cause and causing terrorist acts to try and silence people like Andrian Buket, who was attacked in Istanbul, who nearly had his throat cut by what he claimed were SBU, or Ukrainian Special Forces. Whilst Ukrainian Special Forces have been linked to this attack, I personally understand that Ukrainian Special Forces are answerable to Uncle Sam and therefore the CIA. So in my opinion, this is a CIA funded and perpetrated attack with its intended consequences, which is to try and instill fear in the population of those who are trying to convey the truth and the message from Russia to the West, because it's become problematic. I myself have faced those very same problems from fact checkers like NewsGuard, who have shut my YouTube channel down, banned me for a week, demonetized me, tried to silence me, and now have tried to instill fear in me. Unfortunately, I can't convey my sadness and condolence to Max Fomzin's family, a wife and 3 children who have suffered the consequences. I do understand that in that cafe, there was a child that was injured as well, along with many others. This is a heinous act, as you yourself have described, that in any other circumstances, the West would denounce. But in this case, it is celebrated. And as you yourself have pointed out, as I have on my YouTube channel, the Times, among others, have celebrated with cartoons the murder and terrorist attack, the death of an individual, a journalist, no less. For me,
well, look, Mike, I can sense the sadness in your voice. Just before we leave the Russian end of this, do you happen to know where the flight tickets found on the person who handed over the statuette were to? To which country was she about to fly?
Thank you. That's a good question. No, at this point, I was not told the specific country that she intended to flee to. I do understand that she gave a fake name to the cafeteria when she entered it as Nastya, which is not consistent with Daria. And she had cut her hair a significant length and dyed it. These are the details that I was told from my investigation of it. From the top of my head,
the husband
I
is under
Estonia,
arrest also. You think it was Estonia? Can you tell us, was the husband also arrested?
He was previously arrested as part of an anti-war protest. As I understand, he's out of the Russian Federation. Off the top of my head, I believe he's in something like Poland. He's in the EU. He's in a safe place, and she was intending to join him. That is to my understanding. However, this case is developing as we speak, which is why the Institute for the Study of War has criticized Russia for an inconsistent narrative on this. You'll understand that the case has developed from a murder in a generally dangerous way to a terrorist act.
Yes, I want to move to that. I want to move to the double standard towards terrorism, so brazenly, bloodily, and graphically illustrated in Western coverage of this. This was a bomb that didn't just murder somebody. It could have murdered 50 people. It wounded the best part of 50 people. One of them, a child. many of them women. We could have been looking at 50 dead bodies in that cafe. So the first thing to say is just how many dead civilians are justifiable collateral damage to blow up a man whose crime was to blog, to write words on a blog. How many collateral casualties would appear to be acceptable in the West to carry out that murder?
We've seen it evidenced with Lindsey Graham back before 2014, where he rubbed his hands as if from a Shakespearean play, out damned spot. He said we would fight to the last Ukrainian as he rubbed his hand. It's inconsequential. When it comes to Ukraine, as many lives as is necessary to further the cause, to maintain whatever they wish to maintain. Is it the unipolar world? Is it the hegemony that they had before? It's absolutely catastrophic. We are seeing these lives lost, the men, husbands, fathers, brothers, etc. in Artyomovsk/Bakhmut, and then we're seeing it carried on in these heinous acts in the Russian Federation as well, against journalists, people that the West say are so protected, so proclaimed, so holy in their message, and yet these very same people, like Julian Assange, that they are pressing charges against and ruining lives of. It's just the double standards that is just baffling. It really is just incomprehensible how they can maintain all of this, and the world is waking up. Your viewers are waking up.
Now,
we're preaching to the choir.
You have bravely said that this will not intimidate you and that you will continue to speak your mind. What is the attitude of the general public about it? And what does the Russian state intend to do to prevent this kind of terrorism from spreading?
I can't speak for the Russian state. As I understand, obviously security is very much tightening, particularly in regard to Victory Day. When it comes to the Russian public, every act like this only serves to harden the resolve, only serves to reinforce the message of Putin that this is an existential crisis, that now we have the news of Finland joining NATO. Here we have NATO on the border. You cannot play into the hands. If Putin was a madman repeating rhetoric and delusional things of NATO trying to invade and all this, you are simply just playing into that hand of that narrative. But that's not a delusional case. It really is reality. And if you try and converse that back to the US, it would never be accommodated. It would never be accepted. But here is the reality. We have NATO creeping on the border of the Russian Federation with the stated aim of dismembering and destroying all that is Russian. Let's not forget the war on God. In Kiev against the Orthodox Church, we have had this thing underreported in the West. I've not seen many reports, if any, about this segregation and this attack upon priests of all people in churches, with military armed men going in to storm churches to evict priests. Never have we seen this since the Second World War. And I am ashamed that we are seeing it.
The head of the church is wearing an electronic tag.
Absolutely. Yes, you're absolutely right. Electronically tagged. What does this say about freedom and democracy? And freedom of religion? We have the Kiev-installed church evicting the orthodoxy that has existed for thousands of years. I'm without words. I honestly, I can't believe I'm seeing what I read in textbooks and I believed was consigned to history. We are seeing it unfold before our eyes, and we have complacency in the West, if not double standards, if not worse.
I can assure you it's worse. Mike Jones, thanks for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows.